Good morning, guys. Still on the southeast states. If you take a peek here, we are talking about these states right in here. The red and dark red, minus Maryland and Delaware. Already went through those. But all the state capitals here, that is for tomorrow's test. What I want to talk about is kind of what all these states have in common. Why they're grouped together in the region. Yes, they're close together, but they also share specific traits, specific things that you can compare them. One is kind of a bad history. Not kind of, it is a bad history. This is a region where during our Civil War from 1861 to 1865 and the years before that, these are the states that owned slaves. These states made it legal to own slaves, which of course is not okay, not right, and that's what led us into the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865. These are the different cotton plantations was the most popular farms that they would make slaves working, again, for nothing. They didn't get paid at all. Again, terrible history, terrible thing that was, of course, ended in 1865, but we still have the ramifications since then, which leads us to the very famous person from this area named Martin Luther King Jr. He did a lot of speeches and a lot of rallies for equality for every person, especially people of color and African Americans, because they were not treated fairly. And this is his "I Have a Dream" speech, not the whole speech here, but really just to be fair and equal. And he's very famous, and of course we celebrate his day in January, where we have a day off of school. Another thing they have in common, these regions, is high technology industries, and more specifically cars. In these different states, there's big, huge, giant factories and plants, is what they call big factories, that make these cars, or at least parts of the cars. Huge factories that employ or a lot of people work at in these states. Another big thing in these states is tourism. Now, all of these are Florida, but all these states have high tourism, but especially Florida, where a lot of people go to Disney and have the different beaches and the big cities and things like that. Another thing these states have in common is hurricanes. Now, when we talk about the west states like Washington, California, even though there's big, huge Pacific Ocean, no hurricanes there. We're going to talk about this in science later, where hurricanes need a huge body of warm water, and the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico in particular has some very warm water, and it's a huge amount of water, and that's literally what gives hurricane fuel. And so this is Hurricane Andrew in 1992, when I was a younger kid. Hugely devastating to the area. One thing that I think was still before you guys were born, but something a little bit more recent, was Hurricane Katrina. By the way, Hurricane Andrew is more Florida. Hurricane Katrina was more like New Orleans. Was a famous and not a good way for getting really devastated by this hurricane. Just this huge giant storm that drops tons of water. Now, these states in the southeast deal with hurricanes every year. But some, of course, are a lot more devastating than others. But almost every hurricane causes some amount of damage. But these hurricanes in particular, Hurricane Andrew and Hurricane Katrina, just really devastated whole sections of these states. And some of it they're still repairing today. Here's what I talked about earlier, too, in the week. The Appalachian Mountains go all the way from our northeast states all the way down here. Now, it's not that all of West Virginia is mountains, but these have different mountains and foothills in all these states. Every southeast state has these Appalachian Mountains, except for Florida, Arkansas, and Louisiana over here. But it's kind of funny, looking back at the big cities, you kind of have them here, and you have them inland here, and then there's really nothing too much here unless there's certain valleys, or by the rivers, and then on the other side they have bigger cities too. You can also see again the major rivers and lakes, or even like Tennessee, which is landlocked. They're really not, because they can make use of the Mississippi River and some other major rivers in here that they could easily get to the ocean. Another big thing besides rivers is a lot of these states have swamps. You think of the Everglades, like in Florida, where there's lots and lots of alligators. Louisiana, the bayou has lots and lots of alligators, and it's just these huge areas of land with some deep lakes, but most of the swamps is really quite shallow. Whereas you could even get out the boat and walk through a lot of this, but you're not going to want to get a lot of poisonous snakes and alligators and things like that. That's really what a swamp is. A really slow-moving, wide river. And they have that. And, of course, the Mississippi River, which, again, is great for shipping and getting to the ocean for even these landlocked states. So here's your last assignment before tomorrow's test. And I know this is a little bit bigger, but you need to write in the states. And, by the way, I'll follow all the directions here. A lot of people seem to be cutting it short here and not doing this section. But please make sure, number one, you write in the state names. And yes, some of them do have arrows, even though the bigger states. 2, draw in the star where the state capital is and write the state capital's name, please. And number 3, list 3 things that you learned about the states. That's your assignment for the day. Tomorrow will be the test. Lord's blessings to you as you praise your Savior.